activity to give way to our national convention to avoid webinar fatigue. I hope you agree with me that our national convention, despite its some technical glitches, had been successful. Congratulations to the organizing committee for a job well done. By the way, I would like to thank everyone who shared their blessings to our colleagues and countrymen who were affected by the typhoons. Areas who sent in their donations came from Bukidnon, Cagayan de Oro, Dipolog, Iligan, Pagadian, and Surigao. We collected a total of 164,600, that's including our chapter's donation. This we will divide and give it to our chapters in Southern Luzon and Northern Luzon. To all of you who gave donations and their prayers, a big virtual hug. Thank you. May God bless you and keep you. By the way, before maybe you think it's just the end of my it's just an introduction, a sort of for our what we have done for the past few weeks. Tonight, our lecture is for your parents out there whose kids or patients are having online classes. This new normal is already having an effect emotionally, psychologically, and physically. Others say also financially to our school children, teachers, and parents. This time, how you wish sending and fetching your kids from school instead of having them stay at home doing online classes. And so that these kids wishing to go out and play with their friends and classmates. They may have difficulties in coping and adjusting with this new setup, and so does their parents, you as parents, and I'm sure everyone else. Before we start, let's take 2 deep breaths. First, sit comfortably, relax. Let's take 2 deep breaths. First, let's do this. Inhale, stomach in, slowly exhale. Another one. Inhale slowly and exhale. Right. Yes, now we are ready for this lecture. Thank you. Keep safe, everyone.
Thank you, Doc Baby, for that simple exercise of breathing. It reminded me about our previous webinar on stretching out the stress. And indeed, as you said, this online learning has brought a lot of stress to us. I can really relate as a parent, but also as a pediatrician who will likely meet parents who are also under stress. So before we introduce our esteemed speaker for tonight, let me first share again our house rules. Okay, so if you remember, um, we are enjoined to please stay until the end of the program to access the CPD quiz and to get the certificate. During the open forum, you may type your questions in the Q&A box located on your Zoom panel. When answering the CPD quiz, make sure there are no typographical errors when encoding your email address and name. And for questions about your CPD certificate, please email us at ppsncm.cpd2020@gmail.com. So now it's time to welcome our esteemed speaker. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce my partner in crime and partner in advocacy. She is a developmental pediatrician who completed both her residency training and fellowship training at the Philippine General Hospital. She is a fellow of both the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics and the Philippine Pediatric Society, and is a certified user of the Griffiths 3 and ADOS 2 assessment tools. She established her primary practice in CDO as the first developmental pediatrician in northern Mindanao. Thus, she had to go to the various places in the region, such as Butuan, Bukidnon, Ozamis, and Iligan. She is a staunch advocate of mental health and is one of the conveners of the Yakap Group, formed in 2018 by alumni of the Philippine Science High School main campus. She also heads the Mental Health Advocacy Program of the PPS NCM and works hand in hand with our city's Social Welfare Development Office to address the mental health needs of children and adolescents in the region. So she is the consultant of the community-based mental health program of our beloved city and is a trained psychological first aider. She's also an associate professor in pediatrics at the Xavier University Dr. Jose P. Rizal School of Medicine and the chair of the Department of Pediatrics in Capital University Medical Center. So colleagues, let us all welcome Dr. Anna Rebecca Valmores Doroja.
Hello.
Hi, Ma'am Anne.
Hi, Cindy. A pleasant good evening to all of you. Okay. So thank you for that humble introduction. So I hope that I can give justice to this topic that I'm going to deliver tonight. So allow me to share my screen. Before I start, let me greet all the pediatricians out there. I hope that you're all healthy and safe. Okay. So allow me to share my screen so we can start. Can you see my screen? Hello? Cindy, can you
Yes,
see
Doc.
my screen?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, so it's visible now. Okay, good. Okay, so for tonight, it will be a different lecture. No, it's not about the virus. It's not about not really that medical. So I'll be talking on a topic that is um, very relevant nowadays, especially that all our students are actually not an online learning platform. So, but I will be focusing my topic, my lecture on online learning, the challenges that comes with it, and the tips for parents and the students. So we know very well that COVID-19 pandemic unaware, and it really changed the platform, not only in our social interaction, in our economic, as well psychological and emotional. So it really made a significant impact on all of us. And our students were forced to transition from the traditional offline to our distance learning platform. So that we are all in the same page. Oh no, what happened? Am I still around?
Yes, Ma'am Anne, we can still hear you.
Oh, but the slides, can you hear? I can't, I don't know why I cannot control my slides anymore. What happened to my slides?
Can you try to click the screen, Doc, and then
Ah, naku, what happened to my slides? It won't move. Mm-mm. So anyway, sige, baka nagtukuan lang siya. So for this afternoon, what are the learning objectives? I'm going to give a brief introduction on distance learning module of the Department of Education, differentiating the different types of platforms so that we are all on the same page. But definitely, I will be focusing on online learning. And then I will talk about the challenges faced by the parents as well as the students. And lastly, to give some tips for parents on how to assist the students for them to be successful in this online learning thing. Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. Can I exit for a while? My screen freeze. No. Can you see me?
Yes, the yes,
You
the
can see me. But what happened to my slide? Nag-freeze siya. Sige, escape muna ako ha. Okay. What happened? Okay. Sige. I'll share it again. Okay. I'll go back. Sorry talaga ha. Oh, I'm disconnected. Sorry. Can you still see me?
Yes, yes.
yes, the
Sorry talaga ha. I really don't know what's happening with my slide. I've been sige. Now it's okay. Okay. So good. So, what is distance learning? I really grabbed this slide
Ka pa
from the
naka-share
lecture.
screen, Doc?
Ah, hindi pa naka-share screen.
Yes.
Sorry. Wait, what happened? Okay. I'll exit na lang muna from my PowerPoint. Sorry. Nag-disappear siya pala talaga sa PowerPoint ko. Ano nangyayari? Dali, ha? Wait. What slide is this?
So perhaps while Dr. Doroja is fixing her slides, we would like to remind everyone of our upcoming activities of the chapter. So by next week, it will be a busy week because we have the NRP training for the residents on Tuesday, followed by our the UERMMC postgraduate course, which we will be participating in. Um, we hope that you have seen the posts about this postgrad on December 8th. Also, um, also next week on December before that on December 5 is our research contest that will involve the training institutions of our chapter. So all that is coming up for our chapter activities. So are you ready now, Ma'am Anna?
Can you see my slide?
Yes,
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it's here already? Okay, good. So, okay.
Okay,
So, as I
ready to
mentioned
go.
earlier, I will give a brief introduction on the different distance learning platforms of the DepEd and then the different challenges faced by the students and the parents, and then tips for the students and parents on how to cope in this new platform. Okay. So, sorry. Now, what is distance learning? So, distance learning, understandable na. It's a modality wherein learning takes place between the educator and the learner who are not facing each other. Okay. So there are different types. We have the homeschooling. It has been available with us for several years already. Um, Usually adopted by some schools, private schools run by the Baptists and the different religions. Uh, we also have what we call the modular distance learning being offered right now by the Department of Education. And of course, the very popular online distance learning. It has been with us. Online distance learning has been available, but mostly for postgraduate training. And in other countries, they offer it for college, but it's not that popular. And then we have the blended learning. So homeschooling is an alternative type, and you have access to the same quality of education, although it's home-based, usually facilitated by parents, guardians, or other tutors. And then we have what we call the modular learning, distance learning, currently adopted by our DepEd, wherein they use the self-learning modules, or the SLMs, in print, usually in print, not digital, because I've been talking to a lot of teachers. They don't have, based on the survey, almost 50% of our as well as students doesn't have the laptop or any gadget to use, and they don't have internet connection. I've been talking to one of the teachers yesterday from Bukidnon. She was telling me that some families doesn't even have a cell phone. And sad reality is they have to exchange the materials, and para siyang round robin, no? They go around. Next is what we call the online distance learning. So here, there is a teacher facilitating learning. So it's actually synchronous or asynchronous type. So the synchronous type, wherein the teacher is giving a lecture and the students are listening in their homes. At the same time, real time siya. Okay? Asynchronous type naman, on the other hand, the teacher would record lecture, and then it will be accessed by the students anytime, and it's also mixed with some downloadable modules. Okay? And what is blended learning? We don't offer it at this time. So this is a combination of face-to-face and online distance learning, or face-to-face and modular distance learning. Um, According to some of the reports, some places in the Philippines will soon be implementing this, particularly those with lower incidence of COVID-19. Okay, but I don't think Cagayan will, the OR will be able to implement it soon. Now, we are transitioning from traditional to online, even as pediatricians actually are forced to adapt to telemedicine as well as attend webinars instead of face-to-face conventions. No? So what is the difference? So for online learning, it's more flexible because if it's asynchronous, it's more flexible because you can access the material anytime. But if it's a synchronous class, then you really have a fixed schedule wherein you have to log in, just like this, like a webinar, you have to be there at, for example, every 8 o'clock in the morning up to 10 o'clock in the morning. In the traditional type, we have to go to school. It's more expensive, but at least they have interaction, social interaction with their classmates. Here also, it's self-management. No, you can do it on your own. In the traditional, very fixed schedule. You have really a scheduler in morning. You have the series of subjects that you will attend. In online learning, it's very important that you are tech savvy. But we are very fortunate, but because these iGeneration kids are really digital natives. And very important is that they must be good in writing as well as in reading, because there will be less discussion this time. For you to understand what will work better for the different types of learners, let us review. I know you're very familiar with this. I hope that you're familiar with this Edgar Dale's cone of learning that was adopted from Bloom's taxonomy, if you're familiar with that. Um, the first seven, if you look at this, the pink up to the purple type, more of a passive type of learner. So the first is you hear it, then you see it. You only retain about 14 to 25% of the material. if you hear it, if you just listen to me, you will only retain about 14% of what I'm saying. And if you see my slides, then you remember at least 20% of what I'm sharing with you right now. If you watch a video, because it's a little more, there's already a video, then you will retain more than 20%. Then if you watch demonstration, a recorded demonstration, it will be higher. But what we are really aiming is the active type of learning, and that is the basis for the K to 12 curriculum. In active learning, we notice that they are already participating in workshops. They have collaborative lessons. They simulate models and be able to adapt and it in the real world. Okay. So here in active learning, they must be able to analyze, define, create, and evaluate and reflect on what they have learned. But for younger children, they're not yet capable of that. So they stick to here, particularly for preschoolers. We only, um, introduce through hearing, reading, and things like that. Show some images. Sometimes the teacher would dance and sing to the student so that they will remember it. Okay. So for younger children, particularly for preschoolers, what is more effective for them is the modular type or the homeschool type of teaching because they're not yet capable of reaching this level wherein they will be able to analyze, create, and evaluate and reflect on the lessons. Okay. But for older children, this is what we need. But again, this is highly dependent on the skill of the teacher and the activities given to the students. So we remember this. Actually, Benjamin Franklin adopted this. Oh no, sorry. Adapted the quote from Confucius. If you remember the original quote of Confucius, this is almost the same. If you tell me, I forget. If you teach me or show me, I remember. But if you involve me, then I'll learn. Okay? That is what we need to remember whenever we teach our children. We don't force them to just read. We have to show them and involve them in their learning process. Okay. So how do you know if the student is ready for online learning? So there are factors that will make an impact on this. Number one, of course, is the technology skills. As I mentioned, our iGeneration kids are all digital natives. So they are very more or less tech savvy, familiar with the technology already. But again, another factor that will really affect is technology and connectivity. Like right now, every now and then I'm disconnected. So it's really, really frustrating. Okay. And of course, the availability of the gadget if you are in online learning. And here it really highlighted the digital divide between those families who have and those families without. Even in the first world countries, this is really a challenge for them. So good that we are in, because when we are in a pandemic time, people are very generous, no? They share what they have. So a lot of parents, those with extra, were able to donate some laptops, old computers, or tablet for the use of other students. Okay. In school, we adopted the PASA load program for the students who cannot access the lessons because they don't have connectivity. Third factor that will really affect is the work and study habit of the student. If your child, for those parents, pediatricians who are also parents, if they don't have good study habits, this is going to be very challenging, especially if the student is suffering from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or autism with attention deficit. So this is going to be very challenging. And then time management skills. They need to know that they need to follow their schedule and the learning style of the student as well. So if the student is an auditory learner, and is forced to read, then it's going to be challenging. So, but most students are actually combination learners. And one of the most important is the interest and the motivation of the student. This is the one that is really, really affecting students right now. They are not motivated, particularly high school students, because their motivation in learning is meeting up with friends, being able to know, hang up with them. So now that motivation was eliminated because of the forced quarantine and social isolation. Then the reading and the writing skill of the student is also very critical because this time they will be doing a lot of reports. They will be doing a lot of readings, particularly those on modular type and those with combination synchronous and asynchronous type of online learning platform. They are given a lot of reading materials. So if the student is suffering from specific learning disorder, then this is going to be difficult for the child. And support services, support from the parents and support from the school. So what is the profile of a successful online learner? Number one, the student must have a very good time management. He must be able to stick to his schedule. He must have effective communication skills, must have independent study habits, self-motivated, and technologically ready. Now let's talk about challenges. According to the survey, so I have to tell you, there are no studies for regarding online learning for the basic education for the K to 12. There was one study released that was in 2010. They included at least two schools with K to 12 program, but mostly they were monitoring college and postgrad schools. But unfortunately, there's no result. They cannot make any conclusion for the K to 12 program. So here, this is a survey made and released in April 2020. So these are the top 5 challenges faced by parents. The number one is how to keep the student focused on schoolwork and not, distracted by other applications in their gadget. That's a problem if the school doesn't have that infrastructure wherein they can monitor the student if they are already um, navigating in other spaces. Okay. The second is establishing the daily routine of the student. That's really very challenging for parents, most especially if the parent is working. And for parents, the third one challenge is balancing household responsibilities and at the same time teaching the student. At this time, parents are actually relegated as the para teacher. They take over the role of the teacher and assist the student, particularly for preschoolers and grade schoolers. For high school, if the student is already independent, then they can do it on their own. The fourth challenge is establishing the sleep pattern of the student. Most students would actually stay up late, very late at night, or even in the wee hours in the morning, and would wake up late in the morning. So very difficult for your parents to wake them up and push them to attend their online class. And for working parents, balancing work from home and teaching at the same time. That's 33%. There are two more challenges that are also significantly highlighted for parents to be able to help understand the content of the lessons so that they will be able to assist their child. Unfortunately, how can a mother who finished only grade 2 assist a high school student? That's really a challenge. Even grade 2 mother, a mother who finished only grade 2 and assist her child who is in grade 3 or grade 4. And the last challenge for the parents, reducing anxiety and depression due to real world concerns. We know very well um, parents are trying to juggle everything, and some were already placed on furlough in their jobs, some were terminated, and they still, but life must go on. So they're already suffering with anxiety, depression, and mind you, since March 2020, there's an increase of 30% um, number of individuals suffering from depression. That's according to the report of the Philippine Mental Health. So this is another survey in the US released in 2020 that was revised in September, but the results are still the same. So how does learning at home look like? So this is a Canvas survey. So number one, kids are learning new ways to learn. So before the pandemic, only 56% are actually tech savvy, but now only there's about 79% of elementary students who have very good online experience. And number two, elementary is apparently not easy. 44% said that their children had no experience with online learning tools. That is in the US, mind you. And 62% for parents of kindergarten students. And the last is that parents of young children report more struggle in balancing their work daytime responsibilities and their children's schooling. As expected, higher for kindergarteners because parents must be there almost the whole time that the student is attending her class. Okay, so almost similar to the other study. What about the students? These are the challenges faced by the students. The first is the lack of motivation. As I mentioned earlier, particularly for high school students who are already um, widening their social circle and they're really seeking social interaction, there is a lack of motivation in attending their class. So it's a challenge for the educator to be able to engage all the students in her class in a socially interactive activity so that they will be motivated to join the class and the discussion. The second is distraction and time management. We know very well, just like us, while attending this webinar, some would turn off, of course, nakamute, no? Nakamute din naka-off ang camera while busy doing other things, looking at the cell phones, the same with our students. While listening to the teacher, she would turn off the camera and then search and navigate in other applications. And difficulty in focusing is the number three concern. Number four concern, most especially for high school students, is the lack of in-face interaction resulting to social isolation. The fifth is adaptability struggle to unfamiliar technology, but I guess yeah, 50% are still struggling with this. We cannot assume that they are digital natives. They already have the gadget and they're already familiar with this. Next is the technical issues like glitches and disconnection that we are also experiencing right now. Okay. Next, what are the other challenges reported by parents? Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is real. The lack of physical activity resulting to obesity. You have to admit, there's a lot of us during the pandemic who gained weight, no? Because we enjoyed eating and cooking and the lack of physical activity, no exercise. So increased screen time is another concern of parents because they are really going to use the screen this time. Increased workload and performance tasks resulting to stress and myopia because they are seeing the screen every day. Okay. I can hear some voices. May music pa. Mm-mm. Okay. I want to share this study. This is a local study released in July 2020. This is not a study for younger students, but they are still students and medical students, so we must be concerned in this. They identified the barriers to online learning in time of COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a national survey of medical students, and these are the results, okay? The number one concern is difficulty adjusting to learning styles. Imagine a medical student, an adult having difficulty adjusting to it, but probably the younger generation will be able to adapt more easier. No? The second is need to fulfill responsibilities at home. For communication with educators, the limited space conducive for studying because they are cooped up inside the house. So if you have a mansion, then that's not a problem. But if you have a typical Filipino house, then that's really difficult. Unreliable or no internet access. Even for medical students, it is still a challenge for them. That's about 22%. Mental health difficulties. Okay, 21% of medical students are suffering from this already. The lack of technical skills. I don't know, the need to work for extra income, probably because the parents doesn't have any income anymore, no device or limited access, and the lack of the basic needs. Okay, so what are the tips that we can offer for parents of children who are on online learning? Number one, whether you are suffering from ADHD or just a typical child, it's very important to put structure in their environment. And when we talk about environment, there are two, physical and online environment. So you have to set up a dedicated workspace. We call that the home office that is distraction free, well lit, comfortable. Okay? Make sure that that area, complete materials, complete books, the modules, everything, the notebook, the ballpen, the pencil available anytime. And then they need to set up their online environment. So set up the computer or the tablet, organize the folders in that computer. Okay? Make sure that there is a stable internet connection and there is a way to back up the files. So as parents, we have to teach them also organizational strategies. So these are the techniques. You have to teach them to preview their lessons first, and then they view and review. So puro view yan. Preview, view, and review. So help your child structure his daily activities. So tulungan mo siya. So although they are staying at home, they need to treat every school day just like they were going to school. So they need to wake up this not naman very early in the morning because they're not going to travel, no. But they still have to wake up at the same time every morning, take a bath, get dressed, eat breakfast, and then go to their school or their learning space. Please do not allow them to attend their class na walang ligo, nakapajama, at nakahiga sa kama. Some of us, guilty ako, we do our webinars lying in bed because naka-turn off naman ang camera, but we cannot allow our students to do that. We also have to assist them, although we create a weekly, they have a schedule of their lessons every day. We assist them in creating a daily plan now, so that they will be able to achieve their goals every day. Study tips, ito yan. Make a plan, weekly schedule, and a daily plan also. Offline study tactics, encourage your child to write down some notes. A lot of them, they don't copy notes anymore because it's there, it's in the screen. But encourage them while listening to the teacher, if possible, that they also take down notes because that kinesthetic input will also help a lot in remembering their lessons and they will be able to retain it. So we have to use the multisensory approach. We look, we listen, and we write. And we think. Now, distractions. Time management is actually the greatest enemy, is that distraction. So if you want your child to succeed in this online learning thing, then make sure that you manage the distraction. So before studying, make sure that they exit from any social media applications from their computer and cell phone. If possible, advise them to turn off their cell phone because notifications will still come in and they will be distracted and they will be tempted to check the notifications. The same, nire-reiterate lang natin, while studying, while listening to the teacher, please do not allow them to open Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and whatever social media apps, and to avoid chatting with classmates if not required to chat. Okay? Advise them to take breaks to maintain focus and avoid fatigue. So, this is the basis for the 40-minute limit of the free Zoom account because we can only sustain about 40 minutes. Okay. So children, the attention span of children is about 3 to 5 minutes per age. So a typical 8-year-old kid will be able to sustain 40 minutes of continuous learning and online learning. Okay. And then procrastination, isa tong kaaway din, no? The habit of putting off or delaying tasks that need to be accomplished. I'm guilty of that. I always am a typical crammer. I finish my slides almost a day before my lecture, as always. But I do my notes even before that. Okay? And this is more problematic for online students. So what to do? Advise them to chunk large tasks, divide nila, to start with the easy task first, and then before they work on the harder task. Kung medyo obsy ng konti, use a color coding system in their study calendar. So you know that red is urgent, blue pwedeng i-delay, green, and and you have to post it to serve as a visual reminder. And I always advise for students who doesn't have that motivation to study, find a study partner or buddy who can help them keep pace, no? So at least they can ask each other um, kung nagagawa ba nila yung mga assignments nila. And this buddy must be able to influence in a positive manner the other student. If they're both bad influence, then they're not good study buddies, okay? I mentioned that already. Now, what is Zoom fatigue? This is a real problem, okay? So according to one of the neuropsychologists, Zoom fatigue is actually the tiredness, worry, or burnout associated with overusing virtual platforms of communication. Baka nag-Zoom fatigue na kayo after our successful PPS convention, and here I am giving another webinar to you. And I know that some of you just came from another webinar from another company, okay? So this is really intense and completely new to us. And this is actually a mental fatigue. And there is a basis for this, sorry. There is a psychological basis of Zoom fatigue. This is based on rewards cost trade off. Whenever you do face to face interaction, it activates the dopaminergic pathway in brain structures that increases the subjective alertness, energy, and motivation. And there is that you can touch your friend, there is joint attention, no? You alert. But unfortunately, in video conferencing, there is what we call social disconnection. And this actually affects this reward cost trade-off. So, opposite ang impact niya. And these are the signs. Feeling anxious and stressed before and after a video call. Feeling tired and exhausted. Okay? Pag sabay-sabay na, sunod-sunod na, almost every day or 3 or 4 times a day. There are physical symptoms, headache, migraine, eye strain, pain in the neck, lower back, and the spine. There is that feeling of despair after video conferencing. Si wala ngang social connection sometimes eh. Feeling of confusion and awkwardness during a video conference, irritability, and feelings of apathy. According to the study, only 10% of those who are attending um, video conferencing really like to see their face on the screen na nagfi-feedback. It's not really narcissistic, but 90% doesn't like to see their face all the time in front of the screen. And seeing that face every, you know, if you turn on your camera and you see your face, there is that feedback. It apparently make a negative feedback to your client. It really results to a feeling of apathy. So how do we combat that one? So advice is turn off the camera or set the meeting to the speaker view so that you don't see your face every time. Then you keep a tight schedule. So limit discussions to 30 to 40 minutes only. This is the reason why in colleges, in UP in particular, they only limit their class to 30 minutes per subject. I'm so surprised that there are schools here in Mindanao who actually conducts online class straight 4 hours. So, and then after magbe-break lang ng lunchtime, then another 2 hours in the afternoon, a total of 6 hours a day. So I'm so worried of what will happen to these young kids next school year because they are already saying that there will be a mental health pandemic after this COVID-19 pandemic. So another advice is to get dressed up to perk your mood. Every time you attend a webinar, make sure that you are beautiful, okay, or handsome. Take a break in between sessions. So mga 5 to 10 minutes break. You do your stretching, your yoga. Raisa taught us already how to do that so that we'll be able to relax. You can have your snack break and walk around the house. And then you resist the urge to multitask. Okay. So while on webinar, don't be tempted to work on other things. Guilty as charged last night while attending a webinar. I'm also doing my slides, no? And it's very, very stressful, shifting from one screen to another. Then reducing the eye strain, we follow the 2020 rule. I'll talk about that later. And always remind yourself that this is a new place. As they say, it's between the presence and the absence that we will have to deal with. So, eye strain. This is one of the major issues right now because kids are exposed to the computer every day for those who are online learning. So we know this already. It's posted in Facebook, so very important. Adopt a proper posture. So 90, that's the 90-90 rule. 90 degrees, no? 90 degrees up and then yung table mo, naka 90 degrees din sa body mo. Okay? The camera of your computer should be at eye level. And then the distance of your computer or the phone is about 18 to 24 inches away from your eyes. So that's in the average 20 inches. And if you can use bigger font size so that you will not squint, adjust the brightness of the screen, and the 2020 rule. So 2020 rule, you know that, we memorized it already. Advise the parents to allow the kids to take a 20-second break every 20 minutes and for them to look at an object 20 feet away. So 20-20-20 rule and the 90-90 rule for the posture. And then advise them to blink regularly. And if they have air conditions or electric fan, avoid direct to the eyes. So avoid dry eyes, no. And if there's dry eyes, then you can use the lubricant. Okay, school stress, grades, So this is, I will share this, as I mentioned earlier, there are no studies for K to 12. And this is a very good area for study, for research. So according to Sharkin, he actually wrote a book, this is a resource guide for faculty, staff, and campus community. This is for college students. Imagine if the college students are suffering from this, what more for our high school students who will be exposed to online class almost every day. And if this is prolonged, they might suffer this. So he divided it into two types of behavior, the unusual and the atypical behaviors. So unusual behaviors, if you look at the manifestations, para siyang manifestation of anxiety and depression, irritability, short-temperedness, obsession, deterioration in the quality of work, delayed submission of assignments, disrespectful already in discussion posts, no longer responding, nagwi-withdrawal na, no longer responding to the chats, and then there's already that negative, a dark or odd tone in their work. Atypical behavior, mas severe siya. Okay? So we correlate this because remember the survey for medical students, 21% are dealing with mental health issues. So we need to know what are the signs and symptoms of anxiety. So these are the signs and symptoms. I'm not going to read this to you anymore, but it's divided into emotional, social, and physical. So you can use your GOD-7. You were given last year in our PPS convention. You only need to ask the 7 questions, okay? And then also screen for depression. You only need to use the 9 questions. Use, using, sorry, na-distract ako sa nagsasalita. So we need to detect signs of depression so that you can do something about this, particularly for parents, we have to look at our children. If there are some changes in their sleep patterns, in their appetite, in their mood, but you have to remember some of the initial signs before withdrawal is a risk-taking behavior. So para sila nagra-run away, they're very irritable, they talk back and can. So hindi lang ito. Okay, so how to combat? Again, I mentioned it, the same. Break up tasks, take a break every 15 or 30 minutes. So 30 minutes talaga yung standard. So I hope that you can also advise the schools that they cannot have a 1-hour class per subject. That's not reasonable. And then turn off technology at the end of the day, even for us doctors. I hope that we can do this, but I think it's not realistic because we are monitoring our patients in the hospital. Okay? Take time to relax, unwind, read a book, or do something different from the usual. So how do we keep them balanced between the physical and mental health? Then my favorite, you always strike a balance between the body, the mind, and the spirit. Okay? The harmony in the soul, the mind, and the body is the key to ultimate wellness and happiness. Always remember that happy learners will result to good grades. Stressed students will result to bad grades. So even if your child is highly intelligent, but you are putting too much pressure, or they are so pressured in school by a lot of requirements, and they're no longer happy, then their performance output will really suffer. So number 1 is to let them practice self-care. But when we talk about practicing self-care, we have to model for them. So prioritizing sleep. For young students, they still need that 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night. Do not reverse the sleep pattern, okay? And then healthy eating. So very important for them is to have breakfast before their online class. Limit sweets, salty foods. When we are stressed, we crave for this, the salty and the sweets, okay? And then they need to be active. So encourage physical exercise. They can join dancing and Zumba. Um, Let them join the online fitness class. Sorry. Ano siya ng sarili niya. And then, or if they're not into that, then you can let them participate in heavy work household chores. Okay. And exposure to sunlight will also help. Okay. Activating the happy hormone. So a little note about sleep. Here, very important is to create the sleep schedule, the wake up and go to bed. Remember that this is the number 3 challenge for parents, keeping the sleep schedule of their children. Okay? This one I have to remind, do not allow them to sleep in on weekends to catch up on sleep because this will alter their circadian rhythm. And if possible, encourage them, even for us adults, even at the clinic. This is proven by research at Google to take a nap for 15 to 20 minutes after lunch. 15 to 20 minutes only. No, maximum na si 30 minutes. That will really, why? Because at 2 o'clock, I deleted my slide on circadian rhythm. We are actually very active from 1 to 2 p.m. That's the optimum function of the brain. So if you sleep, you're more focused in the afternoon. But if you sleep beyond 30 minutes, you're very sluggish already. Okay? And advise the kids that no screen before 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime and shut off all electronic devices. So we also take care of the mind and the social skills. So we don't encourage toxic positivity. We don't tell them, even like they feel so bad already, they feel stressed. They don't tell them that it's okay, it's okay. No, acknowledge the feeling and reframe the mind that it will, that's a cognitive behavioral therapy. Toxic positivity will lead to anxiety and depression. It's very important to acknowledge the emotion and then teach them on how to manage it and how to deal with it. Very important, kanina ginawa ni baby, the breathing, the mindful breathing, we have to practice, integrate practice of mindfulness in daily, everyday life natin. We have to stay connected with friends. And then we have to have that meditation apps. So here, particularly for high school students, we have to allow them to connect with their virtual friends. But make sure that you know their friends, okay? Especially with cousins, former classmates, or current classmates. You can allow them to play online games, but check the type of games that they will play. But always remind them to practice netiquette, okay? Remind them that everything that they post will be recorded in the cloud. And the school must also provide activities that will foster online discussion and interaction among the students. It will be fun, okay? Screen time. This is another concern because we know very well they're spending a lot of time in front of the computer. So what is to say of the UNICEF? Do we need to think and change our recommendation? Although if you can stick to the original recommendation of the WHO and the American Academy of Pediatrics, very good. But this time we are a little permissive for as long as there is active engagement and parental oversight. Okay? We highly encourage physical activity in front of the screens. If they have to play with video games together with their friends and do the online exercise. So AAP also changed their guideline, although they did not mention about the time, Before the pandemic, we were very strict that there's no screen for children less than 18 months old, minimal screen for 18 to 24 months, and limit to 1 hour per day of quality programs in 2 to 5 year old. This time, in the times of COVID-19, we cannot avoid additional screen time. That's okay for as long as it's quality programming and there is co-viewing with a responsible adult. But you have to compensate by doing offline activities. So drawing, painting, exercises, playing um, with other members of the family. Okay? And you have to challenge them to practice tech control. So that's actually practicing self-regulation. Again, no screen time, 1 hour before bedtime, and no screen pa rin inside the bedroom. Okay? So no screen in the bedroom, remain pa rin siya even during the pandemic because that's really, really tempting. Then, as I mentioned, research have shown that if you practice mindfulness, so you do it together and you model to your child, it actually reduces rumination, it reduces the stress, it boosts the working memory and the focus. There is less emotional reactivity. They are more cognitively flexible and they are happier and they're more satisfied and contented. So these are the apps that you can visit. They can download this and you can do this together with your child every day. Spiritual wellness. I seldom talk about this because this one, it makes them guilty. And remember always that these I generation kids are actually typically agnostic. You know, they know that there is someone out there, but it's hard to force our, but it's really up to you, you know, but it has been proven that those kids who are well connected with a higher being are um, less likely to develop anxiety and depression, particularly suicide. Okay. So the only way to save our children from being part of that mental health pandemic next year is to build on the resilience. So, what is resilience? This is the ability to withstand adversity, to bounce back from difficulties, and grow despite our life's downturns. So, when we talk about resilience, we are building on this. Develop their confidence, develop their character, that they must be responsible, independent individuals, okay, with a good moral compass. So they have the right principles and values. They have to be confident. If they are confident, there is that sense of self worth and mastery, having that belief that one's capacity to succeed. And then competence, the ability to act effectively in school, in any social situations, and at work. Okay? Connection. When you are well connected to your family, to your friends, and to other responsible others, there is that feeling of safety and belongingness and positive bonds with people and social institutions. Caring, being empathetic and sympathetic for others, being able to understand what they feel, and committed to social justice. And now, in times of pandemic, contribution, the being able to practice the um, act of gratitude and generosity. So, active participation and leadership in a variety of settings, as announced by Baby earlier, donation when there is a typhoon. But if you don't have the resources, you can offer prayers or whatever. Okay? But focus on this. Focus on their resilience and their level of happiness. At this time, the Harvard study is emphasizing that it's no longer the grade that we are looking into. Their success in life in the future is actually based on their level of happiness in school. For parents, self care is very, very important. You are trying to juggle everything. Remember the seven concerns of parents dealing with a lot of responsibilities, no? Making sure that there's food on the table. You have to assist your child in their studies, and then you think of other problems. So you have to make sure that you take care of yourself because you can pour from an empty cup. So you cannot help others if your cup is empty. So you have to focus on yourself first. So this same, we practice mindfulness, we eat right, we exercise every day, we sleep. Pwede na tayong 7 hours at night. We took up a hobby. Marami na tayong plantitas and plantitos nowadays. Ang daming nagbe-bake, no? Displaying their Instagram and Facebook. We have to unplug. When we say unplug, unplug from negative um, mga posts. But you still have to stay connected virtually to people who matters to you. And then practice that attitude of gratitude. Practice be forgiving to yourself. You are not a superhero. You cannot be a perfect mother or a perfect doctor. And be kind to others. This year, the theme of the World Mental Health is kindness. So we practice kindness. And if you practice kindness and gratitude, definitely you will have a more positive outlook in life. So I guess I was able to tackle already and talk about the different platforms of distance learning. Was able to talk about the different challenges faced by parents and the students. And I hope that the tips that I shared will be able to help you address the concerns of other parents and your children as well. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anna Doroja, for that very enlightening and inspirational lecture. I say inspirational, speaking as a parent, not only as a developmental pediatrician. So at this point, before we start our Q&A portion or our open forum, let me first remind our audience about our house rules. So please stay until the end of the program to access the CPD quiz and to get your certificate. And during the open forum now, you may type your questions in the Q&A box located on your Zoom panel. When answering the CPD quiz, make sure there are no typographical errors in your email address and name. And for questions about your CPD certificate, email us at ppsncm.cpd2020@gmail.com. Okay, so now we come to our Q&A portion. I'm checking the Q&A box and there are still no questions there, but I do have a question for you, Dr. Doroja.
Yes,
Um,
Cindy.
I noticed during this time of online learning that the students are finding it easier to just search for answers in Google when their teacher asks them a question or when they have homework. Um, how do you think this impacts on their overall learning and development when they just can easily search for answers right there and then?
We always go back to that cone of learning.
The one that you showed us that has the
Ah,
pink and blue.
yes, the one that I showed earlier, no? So for you to be able to remember 90% or 100%, you have to involve yourself and do something about it. The one that you mentioned is actually what we call the Google effect. It was actually studied very well by Dr. Betty Sparrow in, was it in Michigan? I think in Michigan or Pennsylvania. I'm not sure anymore. But in the US, she actually conducted 4 studies about this. And what's funny is because the students are aware that the information is available in the cloud anytime, they can access it anytime. The result of the study showed that they remember the location where they search it, but they cannot remember the content. That's so funny. Oh, no? And it's so sad. That is the reason why even our medical students, remember during our discussion,
Yes.
it's so disappointing that when you ask them a question, all of them are looking down and holding their cell phone, trying to do their own search.
Search.
Unlike
Yes.
before na parang, hindi naman sa sinasabi natin na tayo memorize natin ang books. No, we're not saying that. But we were forced to do it before, right? We were
Mhm.
forced to really read the books and we remember it, most of the information. Di ba? But as mentioned, if you just read it, you don't really remember it. That's why we have the didactics. We do the clinics, no? And we retain it. We apply what we learned, what we heard, what we read in actual activity, and we remember it, no? But if you just do the search, just like us, no? We know, I remember that. I can locate, this is the window where I place it. Uh, wala. And then you don't remember the content.
The
Mm-mm.
content, the answer. Because it's really probably just short-term memory,
Yes, the
just
short-term
in time.
memory. It's not the active. They're not. They the active working memory. Ang na-retain lang is the location of the search, but not the content. Mm-mm. 'Di
Yes,
ba? So we have the
yes,
long term, the active working, and the short term. So if you want to work on the long term memory, then you really have to do more beyond reading
what do
and
you
searching.
suggest for our parents in the audience and our teachers? Because a lot of us in the audience are also teaching either medical students or residents. No? So how do we like sort of combat the quick to type in the Google search skill of our students?
For me, I will share my experience. For me, what worked for me is when I do research, I take down notes. I make my own notes. But I have to have that kinesthetic input because when I connect the reading and my hand, I retain it more. No? And then I remember before there's one doctor, there's one student, higher year actually siya, when we were studying the cardiology, she would even make a model of the heart. Mm-mm. And she remembers everything. Ako kasi, tumitingin lang ako dun sa model niya. So I can't remember anything. Kasi I didn't touch it. I didn't mold it. No? This is the reason the K to 12 program was revised. Because they really have to do those performance output. They do a lot of tasks. And more or less, we are assured that 30 to 50% were absorbed if they made their own research, di ba? Nagre-research sila, they do the reporting, and then they make pa yung mga whatever task that they need to do. But unfortunately, in this online platform, it's being limited as well. What is missing is the interaction between the students, which makes a difference when
Yes.
they do the discussion. But teachers can actually modify that and schedule discussion between groups. Mm-mm. So as a parent, very important, no? You don't just force the child to just read and read and read. Engage them in conversation. You read their books and then discuss with them. You know very well, you don't even need to give them an exam. If they're able to answer and explain everything to you, you're 100% sure that they know the lesson. But sometimes that's why there's one parent actually who complained to me. They sent me a message that the school waived the quarter exam for this quarter, and they are required to make a lot of performance tasks. So she complained to me. I can't comment because I said, "Oh, that's the highest form. That's the highest form of assessment. It's not the exam, particularly if you do multiple choice. Hula-hulaan pwedeng pumasa eh. And they can share answers online, right?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
that's right.
but you know
You
very
can
well that if it's a
easily
performance
pass on.
task, you know very well if they copied it from another student. Mm-mm. Especially if you know the ability of that student and then all of a sudden, ang ganda-ganda ng output niya, nakakaduda, baka si mommy ang gumawa nun. So we
Especially
guide
at
them,
this
but
time, probably
we
a lot
don't
of
we don't take over as a teacher, okay? Particularly for high school
yeah.
students and grade 5 and above, you can just leave them alone, supervise them. But the younger kids, you really have to sit down with them. But without pamalo, ha? Mm-mm. Nag-a-assess, you experience that when we do assessment, di ba? May pamalo si mami katabi ng bata para mag-sit down.
They've seen all of those memes online about
Oo.
parents being more tough than the teachers
Mm-mm.
when they're doing online learning. But anyway, we have this second question from Dr. Matus.
Yeah,
How do we
I'm
go
ready na.
about the 2-hour PBL sessions of medical students? Do we need to give them a break every 30 minutes?
For medical students, ideally, you still have to give them a break after 40 minutes. Mm. So
Hmm.
you break it, no? Kasi, I don't think you can sustain 2 hours of optimum focus. Ako, honestly, yeah, I can still participate, but I don't think that my focus is still optimum after an hour. So 40 minutes based on study, really 40 minutes. And then give them CR break for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then you resume. Mm-mm. Or just stretch break. Mm-mm. Kasi once you notice some of the students are yawning already or stretching, that's already an attempt of the brain to activate that area of the brain so that they will be able to focus. Unfortunately, it's being misinterpreted by teachers as they are being bored. No, actually, that's one of the response of the brain, particularly for our ADHD students. Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, I have another question. So, for parents who find that their kids are already running low on motivation, because as you mentioned in your lecture, that the one of the greatest difficulties that children face would be if they lack motivation for their online learning. What can parents do to help motivate their kids once again?
Social connection. Because as a parent, you are not a teacher, and they know that you're not a teacher. So it's hard. And then as a parent, you are not trained to teach. So sometimes you are a little harsh to our kids. No? Because we are pressured with our work also, no? Daghang pa ko trabaho, ha? Ganyan, ganyan, no? And then the child is delaying, procrastinating, delaying everything. So you have to look for study buddies. Talk to other parents and connect with each other. That's why it's very important. Parents should also have a group chat. Mm-mm. So you can discuss with each other the concerns of your children and you can address it all together. So you can assign study buddies, those who are concerned. The other students can actually chat them. Now, oh, are you okay? We have an assignment. At least somebody is reminding them because they are more receptive if it is the student, another student reminding them other than the parent who is actually um, some parents because they're so stressed already they are forcing the student to do at that particular time, and we have to know that we have different ways of learning. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe some classmates would be able to complement
Yes.
the learning style of the child.
Mm-mm.
Thank you very much. In relation to the social connectedness, we have another question here. As children need to have breaks and connections with their friends, would you allow children to have play dates in their friends' houses? What other
Oh
precautions
my
would
god.
you advise? Tricky.
Definitely not play dates out in other houses. If you're living in a compound, okay, because you're exposed anyway to each other now within the compound. So the kids can play together every afternoon. But really going out of your house and going to another house, no, not at this time, in times of pandemic. Mm. Yesterday, I was talking to another patient, a family. They're living in a barrio in Club Feria daw. Sabi nila, barrio man kami, Doc. Small lang kami. We have their small clan. So, Is it okay every Saturday mag-meet ang mga bata? And wala naman kaming COVID, doc. Sabi ko, naku, I don't want to comment at baka ako ang, no, as much as
The next
possible,
week.
we don't encourage them to meet up. Mm-mm. I just gave a lecture on heterosexual romantic relationship for mental health, for the Philippine mental health and DepEd last Tuesday. That's one area, no? Because this boyfriend girlfriend would really make an effort na mag-meet up outside the high school students. So we have to be more vigilant because you might be exposed to others who are asymptomatic, but actually positive for COVID-19.
I can think of one more question because there are no more questions in the Q&A box for now. I've met some kids who are actually at higher anxiety levels because they're at home and they feel that their parents are also pressuring them, or even if their parents are not pressuring them, there are some kids who are really just having so much high expectations for themselves in terms of performance that even if their parents are not pushing them, they expect that they always have to have the highest grades. So, how do we address that issue now, especially when we do expect more mental health issues arising from the online platform?
That's the reason there's really an increase. In my clinic alone, I always gusto ko na nga maglagay ng announcement na I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I've been getting siguro 2 to 3 cases of mental health, mostly depression, suicidal, teenagers. Former patients suddenly returning because they are already trying to commit suicide or already very depressed already. And because of this pandemic, being cooped up in that four walls of the house, um, seeing your parents, of course, at the start, we're so excited, no? Being with our family, but seeing that faces every day, 24/7, also triggers some form of irritability,
Yes.
right? So they need their personal space. Now, if you don't, it cannot have a personal space because you're living in a condominium or a very small house, then irritability will set in, and then they don't have an outlet. Unlike before, wherein they can meet up with their friends, they unwind. They can actually unwind when they're in school, because they can chat with their friends. So if you notice that these kids are already doing that, that's why parents, I included a slide on how to detect anxiety and depression. Parents must be keen in recognizing that. And as pediatricians, we have to teach our patient, the parents of our patients, on how to monitor the signs and symptoms as well. We might be too late before they will be able to bring the kid to the doctor, no? Because we need to detect changes. And once you notice some changes, you try to um, engage them in conversation. But if they don't want to connect with you, if you know that circle, you're familiar with that circle. Yeah. That's why as parents, we advise them, we have to have that. You are in the center, and then you have to write down who are the people that you can trust and you can call just in case you suffer from problems, emotional problems. It might not be your parent, it might not be your sister, it can be a friend. You really have to write down their names and their numbers. And then the second layer, if they're not available, who's the next in the outer layer of that circle? And then up to the fifth layer of that circle. Okay? So that's very important. Ngayon pa lang may plan na, just in case. And we really focus on building up their resilience. Talagang we build on the resilience of the kids. And the trend all over the world is the PYD. If for all pediatricians, if you want to learn about positive youth development training by the USAID, you can visit their website. It's for free. PYD 101 course, PYD 102 course. That's actually designed for teachers. But as pediatricians, I believe that we should also learn those. So that because we are handling kids and teenagers as well. And if you can access also the website of DepEd, they also have the SEES, SEES. Very good, very, very good program. Um, Developed by UNESCO, adapted from Canada. Ang ganda ng program nila, including the activities that you can offer to these teenagers. Okay?
So,
Wala
but
na.
you were talking about building resilience, but this usually takes months, right? When you
Yes.
build resilience, would you recommend in the immediate term, like if a child was already depressed or very anxious, clinically, not clinically depressed or anxious, should the child stop with the online learning for now, if that is the cause of his stress? Like they should they
Oh, if the online class is the one, I don't know if it's here. Okay. There's one, the online class is the one that triggers the anxiety. Like he is happy during weekends, but every Sunday evening and Monday morning, it triggers the anxiety. Okay. To the point that he needs to be treated already. So I recommend modular program with a
yeah, a
buddy.
shift, yeah, a shift in the
Modular
type.
program. You shift. That's why the schools must be flexible also. The problem with some schools, they have this parang statute of limitation na you are allowed only to change your platform up to this period and you cannot change anytime after that because we have to be forgiving, no?
Yeah.
Because it's a trial and error, it's an experiment. And mind you, our teachers are not trained as online teachers. There's a different pedagogy for that. So different teaching kwan talaga. And it's a different course. So they were also forced to teach without proper training. So ineffective sometimes. Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is actually an experiment period for this year. So it's a tiding over, and I'm sure 100% will pass. DepEd will allow all students to pass. Just like last March, even yung mga bagsak, pinagraduate sila. Mm-mm. And the high
Okay.
achievers were so disappointed because they were just given a grade of pass. It's actually pass or fail. So I've heard a lot of rants from UP grads who were vying for honors, and they were so disappointed that they didn't get the grade that they're really striving for, and they just got a pass grade, a pass lang. Na-stress sila.
All right. We have a question here from Dr. Olive Go. A patient claims that she can
Okay.
study better with music turned on. Should we encourage it as a physician?
Oh yeah, that's white noise. Mm-mm. The young generation actually have different ways of learning. My husband cannot work without his earphones. It actually allows them to focus because some students, if they don't listen to that white noise, they get to be distracted with a lot of noise and movements around them. But if they have that white noise, they're able to focus only on another stimulus. Okay, so if that's effective for them, okay. Mm. Kaya lang, alam mo naman tayo, traditionalist, no? Talagang we want them to turn off everything and then you have to be like this, you have to be, no, the young generation is a different way, different type of different learning style.
I think with the online platform, that is more feasible
Yeah.
to do,
Mm-mm.
or the modular platform, that is more feasible to do for them to listen to music. If they were in the classroom, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Ito.
Yeah.
Naging
So
Dorian. Ako may question to ask, Cindy.
yeah, there's a question for both of us.
Okay, you answer first.
I think this is on a bit of a personal note. Has there been a change in your schedule of consultation? It used to take months
Definitely.
or weeks to see you. So for you, Dr. Doroja,
Yeah, before, di ba, we used to have a waiting line of 1 year,
yes.
di ba, 12 months. But because of this pandemic, we have a lot of vacancies.
Yes.
because
Now is the time.
yeah.
Now is the
Actually,
time to
a
make
lot
an
of people are
appointment.
grabbing the opportunity. Those who cannot wait anymore. So we have a lot of vacancies, and di ba, we monitor, send them notifications 2 months, 2 weeks ahead to make sure if they're coming or not. And then still, there are so many who are still hesitant to go to the clinic and do the face to face. And unfortunately, they're also hesitant on telemedicine. And honestly, it's really hard to conduct telemedicine for younger kids. It's okay with me for school age students, but for hyperactive, you cannot stay put in front of the camera. I really cannot assess. Mm-mm. It's very taxing for us, no? Because we require videos and the preparation, the consultation, and the post consultation, total of about 6 hours compared to our usual na 1.5. No? It's longer for telemedicine. So
But
we have a lot of vacancies nowadays.
all right. So, a question from Dr. Donaire. How to train an elementary
Mm-mm.
child? How do we train an elementary child to be more time conscious or teach them to value time?
Time management. Mm-mm. So making that schedule is very important. So when we talk about making a schedule, you have to ask the child to prepare the schedule. They will not own it if you are the one who's making the schedule for them. Mm-mm. And then color coding it so that they can easily see it and view the schedule, no? um, Post it, make it a little big as a visual reminder, post it in their study area, post it in the kitchen so that you can see it, post it in their bedroom para you can monitor. And then um, what works for others, they have this, that we use for autistic kids, the packets, no? Wherein they have to get that. We have that parang packets wherein there are divided into two. There are slots for the activities for the day, no? So they will prepare that in the evening. So these are the activities that I need to do for the day. So they will put this first. Okay, for example, English, I have to do this one, then ganyan, ganyan. So it's arranged. And then they get that and they transfer it to the finish slot after they're finished with that. No, that's for younger kids, but for high school, you cannot ask them to do that. Mm-mm. They really have to guide them and then make sure. But we need to be firm but kind to these kids. We don't punish them. We don't have to be strict. We have to understand that it's really a struggle for them also. Mm-mm. So you can make some changes in their schedule if the first schedule is not effective. And you have to make sure and identify the time that they are more what do you say that mm, more engaged. Mm. It might not be in the morning, they might work better in the evening, then that's okay. Basta natutulog sila sa evening.
All right. So I hope that satisfied our doctors who gave the questions. As I see in the Q&A box, there are no more questions left. So I think we can close the open forum. At this point, I'd like to invite our chair of the CPD committee of the PPS NCM, Dr. Maria Therese Habay, to present our certificate for our speaker, Dr. Habay.
Good evening. The Philippine Pediatric Society North Central Mindanao Chapter presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Annah Rebecca Valmores Doroja for sharing her invaluable knowledge and expertise as speaker in the continuing professional development course entitled Online Learning Challenges and Tips for Parents, given this 27th day of November 2020 in Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines. Signed, Amelita Maria A. Hamoy, President PPS NCM, Dr. Cindy Liego, Secretary PPS NCM, and yours truly as the PPD Chair. Congrats, Anna, for that very
Thank you.
excellent lecture.
I hope that you learned something.
Okay.
I pick up several tips.
Fingertips.
All right. So at this point, I think it is time to close our webinar with
Your
our closing
certificate, the
remarks.
ISIN. How
Because
about
it's
your
so awkward
certificate?
to give myself, so awkward to give myself a certificate that I wanted to just keep
No,
it.
I'm the one who's going to give it to you, man, not you. Okay, the PPS NCM would like to present the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Cindy Canseco Liego for sharing her invaluable time and skill as moderator in the CPD course entitled Online Learning Challenges and Tips for Parents, given this 27th day of November in Cagayan de Oro City, signed by Dr. Amelita Hamoy, Dr. Cindy Liego, and also myself as the chairman.
All right.
Congrats, Cindy.
Thank you, Dr.
Always very
Anna.
effective and efficient as secretary and moderator.
Okay, so at this point, let me now welcome again Dr. Habay for the closing remarks.
Okay, good evening once again. This is the second to the last webinar for the year. Again, I am most thankful for your unending support and participation in the chapter's activities. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our speaker, my good friend, Dr. Annah V. Doroja, whom I fondly call Anna Banana, for her time and for sharing her expertise. I really pick up so many tips and pointers from your lecture tonight. Likewise, I am thankful for our very efficient and able secretary and moderator, Cindy Liego. Thank you also to Natra Farm for their full support since we started these online lectures. Please also let me take this opportunity to announce that our last webinar will be on December 11, 2020. That will be a Friday. And the topic for that webinar is creativity. We will feature our very own resource speakers, Dr. Janine Gamolo and Dr. Rona Ocho, together with a talented designer and artist, Mr. Patrick Gabutina. Also, I would like to remind all the area representatives to please submit your video presentations for our Christmas party. Our Christmas party is aptly entitled Pamaskong Musikahan. This was coined by our very beloved advisor and former President, Dr. Patricia Velez Gaig. So, hoping to see all of you next month. Good night and stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Cindy.
Bye-bye.
We will
Good
find
night,
the
Sige.
link
everyone.
to our
Okay, good
CPD
night.
quiz in the chat box before the
Mag-exam
broadcast.
pa ko?
Exam ka. Kay basig di ka ka-answer sa imong exam.
Mao.
Mag-exam ka kay para na kay certificate.
Mag-exam pa dahil ko. Nahatag naman ako kung answer kay Cindy.
Nalimtan na nimo? Imo answer?
I-review sa imong lecture. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
Okay,
Good
mag-answer
night.
na ko.
Mm.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Happy weekend. Salamat, PJ!